Today, I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know to purchase a property in 9 easy steps. My name is Sergio. I'm a local realtor here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. After helping hundreds of families over the last 8 years of my career, there is one thing that has never changed, and that is the home buying process. So today, I'm going to break down step by step how we can get you into your first, your next, or your final property. The first step into purchasing a property is making that big decision. Getting into a property is a big commitment as far as the process and what you're committed to on the financial side when it comes to a 30-year mortgage. Although a 30-year mortgage seems long, drawn out, and scary, the truth is most home buyers stay in their property for about 5 to 7 years. Now, during this time, most homeowners are building up home equity. And once that equity is built up, we can sell that property that they purchased and move that equity into another house, ultimately keeping their monthly payment down and finding a larger house, or if it comes down to it, a downsized home. The next step in the home buying process is going to be for you to determine what your budget is. Now, let me elaborate a little bit on your budget. When it comes to purchasing a house, you want to plan for things such as the down payment, such as your closing costs, and you're going to be looking at each and every monthly expense that you have. Now, when it comes to down payment, you can get into a property with a minimum barrier of entry of 3.5% down payment. Now, this is with an FHA loan. You can also move into other forms of financing, but to shorten this up, 3.5% minimum will get you into a property. Now, when it comes to closing costs, this is something that you want to budget between 1 and 3% of your overall purchase price. So let's say you get a $400,000 property, budget somewhere between $4,000 and $12,000 in closing cost. Now, your monthly expenses are going to be something that you really want to keep in mind as well, such as your utilities, credit cards, car payments, furniture payments, anything that has to do with your credit or outflow every single month. Now, another way to help you determine your budget and get it all laid out is going to be step number 3, linking up with a local mortgage lender that has experience. So the mortgage lender does a couple things. Not only are they determining your budget, but we're going to go deep into your credit profile to determine what is on there currently, what is bringing your score down, or what is helping your credit score at the pace that it's at now. Also, with working with a mortgage lender, this is going to drastically expedite the process to get you into contract. Because when you're working with me and my lenders, we do all of the upfront work to make sure that you're actually qualified before we go out there and search for some properties. Which takes me into step number 4 of the home buying process. Locate a realtor that you can trust and that's going to be open and honest with you guys. A realtor is ultimately going to determine a couple of things. The check boxes that you need when it comes to purchasing a property, the size, the location that you need, most importantly, and some of the amenities that you need around you. Now, as I mentioned, your realtor is going to be somebody that you want to trust with your life, essentially, because this person is going to be sending you houses on a daily basis and showing you property on a daily basis or whenever your schedule does permit. In my experience doing this for the last 8 years, most of my buyers, they have schedules that fluctuate, but for the most part, we're looking at houses from Friday through Sunday, and I'm talking about 10 to 15 properties at a time with the current market conditions. Okay, so we determined a budget, we located a local lender and a local realtor. Now, step number 5 is going to be the home hunt. So we have an idea of what you're looking for when it comes to your next property. So when you're out there looking at homes, I want to give you a little bit of preface that although we have a checkbox of things that we want in our property, what I set my buyers up for is, hey, if we can hit, 3 out of 5 of those boxes in that house, it's still going to be a good property. You may not find each and every box that you want checked from that property. And with that said, if you do find it, it may be a house that is a little above your budget, but remember, everything is negotiable, so make sure you talk with your realtor to determine if the house is priced properly during your home search. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video so far. I want to interrupt myself really quick and say that if you are liking what you're hearing so far and you want to connect, please go down into the description below. fill out a quick jot form so you and I can get on a phone call and we can start the process. So you've located the property that you like and you want to determine, hey, what are going to be some good terms that we can get this property for? That's step number 6. Now we're in the negotiating process. So you and your realtor are going to come together with your lender and determine what the numbers for on this property that you want. In my experience, negotiating a property is one of the fun parts because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to formulate a win-win situation for the seller and for the buyer. Now, here in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona, the current market conditions has shifted a little bit. So if you're looking at properties that are $400,000 and below, we're running into those multiple offer situations again. So this is going to be something that you, your lender, and your realtor need to determine if it's happening right now. Aside from that, most properties right now are still sitting on the market after 40, 50 days. So here in Phoenix, most properties are highly negotiable and sellers are also contributing to some of those closing costs we talked about a little bit earlier. Hey, congratulations. We got a contract on a property that we negotiated with the lender, the other listing agent, and that seller. Great work. So now here in the state of Arizona, we have a 10-day due diligence period. Now this is going to vary from state to state. So make sure that you're working closely with your realtor to determine what your due diligence period is. Now, during this due diligence period, we do a couple of things. We get a contractor to come out to the property and inspect it with a fine-tooth comb and pretty much a magnifying glass. We hire this inspector to come out and determine the minor and the major issues with the property. Some of the things that I tell my buyers to look out for are those big ticket items: roof repairs, AC and HVAC repairs, plumbing, electrical, and big fixture items are going to be things that we want to look at the most. Now, after this due diligence period, we have the opportunity to go back to the seller and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we need this toilet fixed. We need this AC unit serviced. We need this hole in this roof repaired before we can go in and move in. And this is something that is going to be also negotiable during that 10-day inspection period. And after that inspection period, once we get the clear, there's some terms that are negotiated, there's some agreements as far as repairs. We're going to go into the appraisal process. Now, again, we're working closely with the lender throughout this entire process. So I'm going to reach out to the lender and we're going to hire another contractor to go out to the property and determine whether or not the house that we're under contract for is actually worth the contract price. Now, once the appraisal is done on the property, two things can happen. The property can appraise at the contract price, or the property can come in a little bit below what the contract price is. And at that point, we as the buyer have a couple of options. If it comes in at value, great. We're on and almost to the closing table. Now, if there's a discrepancy in the purchase price compared to the contract price, then we go back to the seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, we're under contract for $425,000. However, your house has appraised at $415,000. That $10,000 gap is going to be something that the seller wants you to pay for, but ultimately the bank is only going to lend you that $415,000. So in most cases, the sellers are going to take that $425,000 price and bring it down to the appraised value. Again, especially in a market like we're in today, where there is a lot of competition and many other houses to choose from. All right, guess what? You determined that you want to get into a property. You met with the lender. You met with the realtor. We got a contract. We've gotten through the due diligence inspection period and the appraisal period. Now we do what's called the final walkthrough. So the final walkthrough is something that you and I are going to go back to the house to determine a couple of things. Were those repairs done that we negotiated during our due diligence period? We also want to make sure that the house is in the condition that it was in when we first saw it. So I've had experiences where I've gone into other properties. The seller has switched out the oven, they switched out the refrigerator, and that's a big no-no here in the state of Arizona. I've also ran into instances where we go back to the property and there's holes in the drywall, there's fixtures that are missing from the walls, etc. So this is the ultimate importance of the final walkthrough when we're going through the process. Also, one thing I like to do is let's meet the seller at the property, because if you're buying a property with a sound system, an alarm system, other gadgets that are in the property, the seller can ultimately be there with us to help us navigate through the sound system, the garage door opener, or maybe they have some big fancy alarm system as well that we need some instruction on. This is going to avoid us having to reach out after we close. All right, the final step of the home buying process. We are now at the closing table. We are ready to get those keys. So during closing time, before we close 3 days prior, me and you are going to go to the title company. We're going to sign the final disclosures for your new house. We're going to make sure that all of the numbers match from the lender to the title company. Ultimately, your closing costs of that down payment, make sure all the figures match. Once we sign on those papers, 72 hours later, we'll be in a position to where we can actually close and record on your property. Now, this usually happens somewhere in the late afternoon time on your actual closing date. But once we get that notification from the title company that your house has officially recorded with the county, you and I are going to meet at your brand new property. We're going to exchange keys. We're going to be excited. We're going to invite the family all out to the house, take some pictures, and celebrate all together. So if this is something that you ultimately are looking to do, but you're not sure where to start, reach out to me and let me know how I can help.